Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. In this week's episode, we talk about the top 5 hurdles when starting print on demand. Let's get into it. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on the Print on Demand cast. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of everything, I just want to say thank you for clicking play. If you've subscribed, thank you so much. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or however you're getting this, if you could leave us a review, let us know what you think of the show. 5 stars, of course, on Apple Podcasts is preferable because, well, it just makes us feel better. But it also helps the algorithm in getting us in front of the right people to listen to this content. So please do that as well. And we're on all of the socials, all of the social media platforms. We're there, Print on Demand cast. Follow us there as well. But it is just good to be back here recording live with, as always, the co-host Travis Ross. Travis, how's it going, man? It's good to see you again. And happy Easter. Easter has passed since we've recorded this, and here we are. So how was your Monday?
Oh, Monday was great. Had everybody here, got all the stuff done. It's good to have you back. I was,
Yeah.
how about that cool little opener thing that we kind of put together
Yeah.
and tried to
Kind of
figure
threw
out? That
together.
was fun. Yeah, but
Yeah.
honestly, I think everybody really would want to know about where you've been for the last, several weeks. And I
Yeah.
don't think it's like not a we're not hiding it or anything. You've been in Brazil. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got a lot of stories. So can
Yeah.
we just like make a quick little segment and hear a brand new Brazilian story from Josiah? How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. That was nice.
Thanks.
That was pretty Brazilian as far as I can tell. I didn't listen to
Yeah,
much
me too.
music there. As far as Brazilian music, I didn't really hear much of that, but what are we gonna do? So yeah, 18 days in Brazil. It was incredible. If you follow me on social media, you saw some of the pictures. I will say I'm pretty blown away at what an iPhone camera can capture because every single picture I posted, I just took with my smartphone. And then like put into Lightroom, and I just downloaded Lightroom the week before I left to try and like just learn it a little bit and then touch it up a little bit. But yeah, I was super impressed with what an iPhone camera can do. But
Yeah.
overall, man, lots of incredible things to see. Copacabana Beach, Ipanema Beach, the Statue of the Christ. I mean, there's all kinds of just beautiful
Mm,
overlooks and just really incredible scenery, as well as I mean, Brazil is its own. It's another world. Obviously,
mm,
I guess it could be considered by some like a third world country almost because there are just like there's certain portions of Brazil that you just don't go to.
mm.
Like the person I was
Okay.
staying with, we would walk into a certain street, certain place, and he'd be like, "Hey, don't speak English here," and I'd be like, "Got it," or he'd be like, "Don't get your phone out," because they know they look for the tourists in those certain particular
Mm,
parts of Brazil.
sure.
And so, but I mean, I also realize that that can also happen in like the Bronx and New York and downtown Denver sometimes, where it's just like
Sure. Yeah.
dangers everywhere. You know what I mean? At certain
Right.
certain degrees. So, but overall, man, yeah, it was an incredible trip. Made a lot of good friendships with some of the folks down there that Madeline had known from her time there previously. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it was incredible. It was really, really, really fun. Good to be back, but it was nice to be in the warmer weather and not a care in the world. You know what I mean? That's the good thing about vacation is like I just put everything here in Colorado on pause, and I'll
Yeah.
stress about it when I get home. It's basically is how that vacation goes. But one thing that did happen, I was talking to a friend of ours there. His name is Chiago. He's who we stayed with. He and his wife and his
Mhm.
son. And we were gonna go to the zoo there, because there's like a zoo there in Rio, and and in Brazil, R's are pronounced as H's. Fun fact. So Rio de
Mm.
Janeiro is actually Rio de Janeiro. So figure that out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but there's a zoo there, and so we were gonna go check it out and see all of the wildlife there. But we couldn't. Go was actually closed because one of the monkeys was actually like taken into, I don't know what the equivalent of jail is for a monkey, like animal control. I don't know. But the monkey was essentially arrested for lighting its feces on fire and throwing them at the zoo workers there. And according to like the
What?
article, yeah, the craziest thing in the world. Like Brazil just hits different on a myriad of levels. Their monkeys are off the charts crazy, but they were throwing the feces at zoo workers. And according to the article that Chiago had showed me, some like 3 of the zoo workers, I think, actually had to be taken to the hospital because they suffered turd debris burns.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
There you go.
So well done. So
Yes.
well done.
So good. Pepper. It's like the 2 truths and a lie. Here's something that really happened in Brazil. Here's something true about Brazil. Here's a completely made up thing that we just did for the sake of a dad joke. And so you can tell, you decide which one is which, folks. You know, whatever you think can actually happen here. So, but it is good to be back. Good to be back in kind of the normal rhythms of life and getting over jet lag. We landed Saturday afternoon and then, took a quick nap, which was a mistake because I woke up feeling even worse. Just from like jet lag. I went and got some Chick-fil-A because I've been craving that for 2 weeks. They don't have that in Brazil, obviously. And went to bed, and then Easter Sunday was on the team, so I had to wake up at 4:45 in the morning and get over for 3 services. So I was pretty much useless yesterday afternoon, but for the most part, I feel pretty okay. We were only 3 hours ahead of here in Rio. So like right now it's almost 11 o'clock there. Another fun fact about Brazilians, and then we can move on to the actual show. They don't start eating dinner until 11 o'clock at night, their time. Like they had some
Wow.
friends over for a barbecue and it was like 11 o'clock at night and their friends just showed up and they just started cooking. So every night it would be like, around dinner time was like, do you want a snack? And I'd be like, sure. So when it was like 6, and then actual dinner was like at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. So it's just like, and then they go to bed like at 2 or 3. It's
Wow.
wild. Yeah, wild times. But yeah, beautiful
Well,
and fantastic. So yeah,
we're glad you are back. Yeah, we had kind of the print on demand cast on cruise control while you were gone,
we
but
did.
had a couple cool episodes. And we'll talk about maybe one of those episodes in particular because it's kind of the impetus for this one. But before we get to that, I do think that we may have a very short point of interest. You think we should get to that?
Point of interest.
It has come to my attention that it would be absolutely incredible if we had a producer that wasn't us for this show.
It would. And the possibility exists within StreamYard to assign producers to literally just be producers, and we would basically just type it into the show map. So it's possible. Could be a thing.
I don't know. Maybe there's somebody out there that has, production experience. Send your resume to info@printondemandcast.com.
Yes.
We will consider it.
If you have experience pushing buttons at rapid speed, you could get the job. Could happen. Yeah, but seriously, that'd be awesome because then we could just not be shuffling or spinning all the plates or juggling all the oranges. Anyway, so point of interest, you in my absence, since since last time we saw each other right before I left to Brazil in passing at Jason's house. And while you were, one of the reasons you were there was actually to kind of get acquainted more intimately with Wayfair. And Wayfair is a platform that I've hated since I laid my eyes on the back end of that whole store. I hate it. I just don't think it's very efficient, I think is my problem. It's kind of clunky, like navigating it and stuff like that. So you have been kind of test driving it, for lack of a better term, the last couple of weeks. And so what is your verdict at the moment as far as Wayfair? If someone out there is thinking about Wayfair, maybe signed up for Wayfair, and then I just kind of pooped all over it inadvertently, don't quit it. It does actually move product, but it's just a learning curve, like everything else. But
Sure.
Travis, for you, how has it been so far?
Well, in a word, poopy. um, and that's just being, 100% honest. But yeah, it's not been fun. It's like I feel like they've probably improved the back end, like many of the other, websites and things like that. I
Yeah,
feel like they continue to get better on the back end, but even then, I would upload a spreadsheet of, I think I had 1,700 lines on it or 1,750 or something like that.
yeah,
And these were variations. So they had one product or one main listing and then, four products. So there were four products per listing. So basically 1,750 divided by four ish
yeah.
actual products. And then there would be variations of those. Every time I would upload something, it would be like, "All right, you're great. This is awesome. Oh wait, you need to also
I
tell us
lied.
what these things are." Yeah. And a lot of the columns in the spreadsheet would say optional until they weren't optional. And I would have
Yeah,
to go back and, you know, do a whole bunch of other things over and, figure out what it's asking. And I probably went back and forth with Wayfair and trying to figure out, okay, hey, there's no errors on this. Why didn't it go through? And they're like,
yeah,
oh, well, you forgot to put this field in. And I'm like, well, that field said it was optional. So why? Okay, whatever. I'll do that. And so I would do it again. And this went on for multiple weeks. Finally, got a spreadsheet with my inventory to go through and after, like I said, probably 10 times uploading this stupid thing
good lord.
in different variations and, adding things and uh, things like that. Now, I will say they do make it easy on each part of, like, you basically go through each of these screens and there's like different sections. And on each section, you have the ability to download the requirements for that section
Yeah,
with your products on it that you initially uploaded to kind of start you on this process.
right.
And so you can, you're in section, the third part of it, and you can just download the things that'll get you past that part. You don't have to, it's
Yeah,
not a massive, thing. So that was actually nice because you could download it and upload it from that one tab screen
yeah,
in Wayfair. So finally I get everything, all the way to the end, submit. Of course, it didn't work the first couple times because there was other things. Finally got it done. And then like, I don't know, probably 300 of my products went live and there's a whole bunch of them in there that have errors and I have no idea why.
Ah,
So many different, and so I've sent them an email back and said, well, why? And thus far have not gotten any help as far as um, what to do now. So I have a
yeah,
few products, and of those products, it's funny because they'll be, some will have all four variations, some have two variations available for whatever reason. I've updated the inventory, I've updated the pricing, I've, done everything I possibly can do. It's just very, very confusing, and it seems as though um, it just it doesn't learn. It's
yeah,
like give it everything it needs, but that's not everything it needs. And so it just slowly drips out errors.
yeah,
So it's been a frustration. I'm hoping that, they get back to me and we could figure it out. But I mean, for the time I've invested, I better sell some damn product on that thing. Cause it's just a pain in the butt. And I'm like, the last thing I want to do is try to upload more products on this
yeah.
stupid website that sucks and, is horrible. And yeah, anyway, yeah, it's kind of a Wayfair rant. And perhaps if I would have put these in manually, like individually, it would have gone better.
Yeah, but
I think, but who wants to do that when you have a spreadsheet of everything you need,
right.
basically with 1,700 lines on it? I want to use that automation. I want to use that
Yeah,
bulk feature.
in bulk, baby.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, it didn't go well for me. Maybe it went well for you. Let us know. Would love to hear your, your support of the platform. If you're on there and you're doing well, I mean, it is a great place to sell home decor items. And I know you guys sold a ton back in the day and continue to sell some. And so just trying to jump on the train, jump on the bandwagon, find another place to sell our wares.
That's right.
But I don't know if this is going to be the place ultimately.
Well, you don't know until you try, I suppose. And again, we always talk about maximizing assets. And so if there's another platform that you can get on to do that, then swing the bat, see what happens. So yeah, awesome. So we're gonna go. We've mentioned at the top of the show the main event this week, top 5 hurdles when starting print on demand. So let's get into the nitty gritty.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Let's do it.
Main event, who's calling?
So Travis, you said, one of the episodes that aired while we were kind of on hiatus or autopilot, episode 136 to be specific, kind of informed this particular episode because we talked about the downside of print on demand. And so in this episode, we want to revisit that kind of from a beginner's point of view. And like, what are some of the things that stand in your way? What are the hurdles and how can you overcome them? And I think the first one is one that we've talked about like all the time. And it's the first piece of advice we give most anybody is like, what do I do? And the answer is usually anything. Do something. So usually the first hurdle people kind of encounter is getting started, taking action. So I mean, yeah, let's talk a little bit, dig kind of a little deeper on as far as what that hurdle is, how to overcome it, and then we can move on to number 2.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, really, you just have to realize that forward momentum, momentum begets more momentum, and so if you start anything, it's going to get easier as you start, but you have to start it. And that's probably the hardest thing to do. So what is it going to actually take for you to get you to start? Have you signed up for your particular print on demand channel, be it merch by Amazon, or have you signed up for Redbubble? Have you signed up, if you're going to go the more seller of record thing, have you signed up for that Etsy account or that Amazon Seller Central account? Have you actually done that, or are you just talking about it?
Right.
Have you, if you have done that, have you created any mock-ups that you're going to use on that channel? Now, obviously you don't need to do that on Redbubble or merch by Amazon, but if you're selling on Etsy, you're going to have to figure out how to do some mock-ups. So, have you got your placeit.net account? Have you figured out, okay, I'm going to use a website and I'm going to make them myself. So have you learned how to make mock-ups in Photoshop or one of the other photo editing programs that are out there?
Yeah.
There's so many things, there's so many things that will paralyze you from getting started. And those are the things that you just have to overcome. That is starting to push the rock in the direction that you want it to go. It's always hardest when there's no momentum to get the thing started. Once there's a little momentum, it becomes easier and easier. So there's a lot of other things that you could be doing in this, kind of interim time. Maybe you're waiting to get approved on merch by Amazon. Have you created any designs yet? Have you done perhaps some keyword research for those designs so you know how to title them and how to put the descriptions in and all of that stuff? There's always something that you can be doing, I think is the bottom line here.
Yep. I think so. And I think the saying is that, perfect is the enemy of good enough. So good enough is enough to launch. You don't have to have the perfect design. You're not going to, the odds are, just like with anything, the first couple of times you might not hit a home run, and not, statistically speaking, especially in something like this, you're probably not going to. So you have to keep like you said, that momentum moving. Because if you sit on it and you wait for everything to be perfect, then you're honestly
You'll,
the bus is just going to leave without you,
yeah,
and you're not going to
you'll
get
never
anywhere.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll
Yep.
never start. And one of the biggest things that you need to consider if you haven't done some of the things that I just outlined is, what is it costing you?
Yep.
What is the opportunity cost of not doing those things costing
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
So if you are going to make it in print on demand and you're going to, make $100,000, in, 3 years from now, that's going to be your 300 or your $100,000 year.
Right.
If you don't start, you basically, if you start 3 months from now, that's 3 months further down the road that you're
Yeah.
going to actually make that money. And you cost
Yep.
yourself 3 months of
Yep.
lower sales, of no sales technically, but of lower sales until you hit that goal. And
Yep.
so you're costing yourself. There's an opportunity cost that is real. And you don't want to pay that.
Yeah.
that
For sure.
that opportunity cost is expensive, I guess, is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Yep. Yep. And then, like you say, if you have started, what's the next thing that's holding you back? What are you not doing? Like we just talked about Wayfair, getting on another channel, adding another product, always thinking ahead to growth, to expansion, to what you want, where you want to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And again, what's the opportunity cost? If you're not going to, if you don't want to expand to another channel and you just want to do Amazon, well, what happens when if that account gets suspended, shut down, removed, and then
Right.
all of your eggs in that basket are shattered and scrambled, and you don't have another channel to go to, or you don't have more products to kind of replace that particular source, or that revenue, or that income stream. You can't replace that, and so that's a cost. So you always have to be just forward thinking. But at the end of the day, I think do something. Inactivity is
Right.
the worst thing you can do. A lot of people say, why in this podcast you guys kind of give away this information for free, and all of these tools and these tips, and why are you doing that? And the reality is unfortunately an overwhelming percentage of people who hear this and haven't started in the print on demand industry, or they're thinking about it, the percentage of people that actually act on it is fairly high or low, the people that act on it. So
Mhm.
there's a percentage of people who will just gain all the knowledge in the world but never actually implement it,
Right.
and that's what we're talking about, getting kind of paralyzed and not moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we get people signing up for the Facebook group, and one of the questions when you go to printondemandcast.com/Facebook to join the group. If you haven't, go ahead and do that. It's a quick little plug. But when people join, there's some questions, and one of the questions is, where are you at in your print on demand journey?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are signing up for the Facebook group that say, I'm just a beginner. I haven't done
Yep.
anything yet.
Yep.
And this episode really is for you. This is a gentle encouragement, aka a cattle prod,
Encouragement.
to
Yes.
push you into taking action. And that's really what we're trying to say here. The opportunity cost of not taking action is more than you want to pay. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in one of the other points later. So I'm not going to
Yes.
continue to beat that dead horse. So we can
Yes.
move on.
All right. So number 2, deciding what to sell. That can be quite the roadblock. And so, Travis,
Right.
a question is, customer or product first? Which one do you try and figure out? Are you trying to figure out your perfect avatar of who your end user is, who's your demographic, or are you trying to figure out a product to sell, and then maybe down the road you kind of fine tune that product that you've already sold? You have experience in marketing or the keywords for that particular product, and you kind of shift it towards your target demographic. What is it, chicken or the egg? Like, what comes first in your mind? What would be one of the hurdle that would prevent
Yeah.
people from moving forward there?
Yeah. I think yeah, there's several answers or several directions I could go with the answer, but I think in some ways it can be channel dependent. So for instance, if you're on Merch by Amazon, you don't necessarily have a brand. You have you're licensing your designs to Amazon to sell on your behalf. And so there's not a whole lot of benefit to trying to build a brand on that. Now, you can look at a specific avatar, like you said, a customer that you're wanting to try to target and focus on that niche. I think that but then on the other hand, like if you're on an Etsy platform, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for you to brand your store, make it more, aesthetically
Yeah.
pleasing and those types of things. And I think you can find a demographic that you want to serve specifically that could potentially become a return customer on that particular platform.
Yeah.
You can also do that on Amazon. A lot of people in the private label arena have done that. With different niches, they'll go into it and they'll have like some type of like a travel niche, and they'll have bags for people, and then they'll add
Yeah.
more products to that. And hopefully they're trying to capture more sales from people who have potentially already bought
Right.
from them. So you really can go either way with this. But if either one of these is going to be a roadblock to you, if it's going to slow you down, then stop it immediately and start.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll also say, like, once you do get started and you have listed a product, regardless if you went customer first or product first or niche first, you can allow your sales and your customer feedback,
Yeah.
emails and things like that, to kind of guide you into where you should go next.
Right.
If more people are buying this type of product, well, makes sense to launch more of those types of products and designs,
Yep.
and that can kind of morph into your customer base over time.
Yep.
But regardless, either way, you just got to get started. C
Yep.
point one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, I think to Travis's point, it's you can overanalyze everything, and it can kind of keep you from, like you said, go with your gut. I have a friend who does this all the time about everything. She, you know, has a gut feeling, but then overanalyzes the gut feeling, and then
Mhm.
it ends up being this like 15 to 20-minute discussion of like, what do I do? Is it this? If I did that one, I'm like, you already have the answer. You said what you know you should do, and I don't know why you're just sitting here talking, spinning in circles for 15 minutes. So,
Mhm.
number three, the third hurdle: finding a reliable vendor. Um, there's a lot of options out there. Obviously, I think that's one of the things is like, who do you go with? Because there's so many people and so many
Sure.
shops and so many things out there and so many options. But listen, again, perfect is the enemy of good enough. And you can start, you're not, married to these vendors. I don't know of any vendor that necessarily makes you sign some kind of long-term commitment
Right.
when using their services. You're not
Mhm.
married to these people. You can always switch. You can always and you can, depending on the setup that you have, or if you're doing an Etsy store or what have you, you can have different vendors fulfill different products and kind of figure
Sure.
out which one of them works best for you. We have several to choose from. printondemandcast.com/resources. You can go and kind of see some vendors that we have a relationship with, that either have been on the show or we know them, and you can kind of start there, at least kind of a pared
Mhm.
down list of people to try and
Yeah.
see who can help you and find that reliable vendor.
Yeah, and I mean, this step or whatever doesn't necessarily have to be a roadblock. It's actually
Right.
kind of one of the more fun things that you get to do when you're starting off, and it can also help you with number two. Deciding what to sell. If you
Yeah.
go to a Printify or a Printful and they have, you might be browsing some of their products and go, oh man, you know, I wanted to sell to these people and they love these things and this would be a great idea. And so I could sell this product, and it
Yeah.
helps you with that other step, and um, so depending on your vendor, there may be something available to you that you had no idea was even a possibility before you started.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, make your mark design. That's one of the things that we try to do is have some unique products that you can't find in other places. And there's, and like on Printify, there's some products that we don't sell, and probably Printful has products that Printify doesn't sell, and vice versa. So you
Yep.
really, that will help you in kind of deciding where you want to go long term.
Yeah.
You know, what products you do want to offer. Again, maybe focusing it back on a specific demographic of a specific avatar that you've identified as somebody that you want to sell to. What would they
Yeah.
like? Would they like these things or these things more?
Right.
And, you know, jump on these things.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Number 4, I think is a hurdle that is fairly common, especially when you're just starting out, and that's
Mm-hmm.
treating it like a business. I think there's a very high tendency to kind of, especially if it legitimately is a side hustle and you have a full-time
Sure.
job and you're putting 40 hours in elsewhere, but you're doing this on the side to see what it can become. There's a tendency to treat it as such, but you have to give it the intentionality of a business in terms of organization, bookkeeping,
Mhm.
and discipline. Because if this is, and it doesn't have to be, we've talked about this before, like what's your why? If it literally is just a side hustle that you don't have any real ideas or any kind of intentions for it to replace a full-time income, it's just always going to be supplemental, and it is what it is. It's fine. If you're looking for it to replace your business, though, you have to, or replace your full-time income that you have at your other job. You really do have to approach it like a business,
Mhm.
because what will happen is it'll grow to that point, and then you will be playing catch up very quickly because
Right.
you didn't give it that intentionality in the outset, at least to kind of foresee some sort of growth,
Mm.
to be able to facilitate what you're actually wanting to happen. So you really have to give it and treat it, make a business plan, identify the why, and kind of just go through all of that kind of stuff. With organization, the PODcast 10th episode in the archives, organizing your SKUs and designs, was one of the first times we touched on that topic.
Mm.
And so avail yourself of that again in the archives, episode 10. Bookkeeping, which Travis and I both hate. It's not one of our favorite things in the world, but
Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, my current, like, I did my own bookkeeping for years, and I finally hired somebody, an actual virtual assistant. And so, I was gonna say episode 95. What can VAs do for you? And we talk actually to Uncle Mike. He, you know, has a ton of VAs, but one of the things they can do for you
Yeah.
is the bookkeeping side of things. If you hate it,
Yep.
you know, you don't have to hire them full time. You can allow them to, you know, maybe 10 hours a week or something like that. But regardless, that's something you gotta do.
Yeah.
Um, then I was gonna say, on the discipline side, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road when it comes to treating this thing like a business. You know, how are you organizing your time? You know, um, and you know, if you're actually able to, like, spend a full day on this, well, the first thing you should do, if you know, if you're starting in the AM, or even if you're starting after work, the first thing that you should do, every single day, and I am guilty of not doing this, but I'm preaching to the choir right now. uh, but Brian Tracy, who is a motivational guy and, a sales, you know, sales trainer and all this, has a book called Eat the Frog.
Mm,
And it's literally an analogy for doing the hardest thing in your daily task list first and getting it off of your plate. So eat the frog. I mean, that's kind of gross, right? It's like, that would be
yeah.
difficult. But once you've done that, um, the rest of the day is a breathe. And like we were talking about in point one, that momentum has started. You know, you did the hardest thing, you got the thing
Yep.
started. And so you can roll into that, you know, and then in the PM, you know, or towards the end, of your work day, um, look at your task list and do one more thing, you know,
Yeah.
make one more mock-up, write one more description, post one more product, you know, and
Yeah.
just decide at the end of my workday, I'm going to do one more thing. And it could literally, it could be as simple as, one more keyword research for the product that you're going to make tomorrow. And that's going to be eat the frog tomorrow. You're going to put that
Right.
whole thing together and list it. But today you're going to focus on, like just figuring out the keywords for that. So, and then the last thing I'll say is like, what are you going to sacrifice, to make this
To make it happen.
business a business and not just a
Mhm.
side hustle? Can you go for 30 days without Netflix? Challenge yourself, take a chance on this thing and decide, I'm going to make a commitment for the next 30 days to do X.
Yeah.
I don't care what X is. It's because no matter what X is, if it's your business and you actually accomplish the 30 days, you will be further ahead in your business. I guarantee it. I don't care if
Yep.
it's a super small thing. You think it's the smallest thing, but do it for 30 days and see what happens.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think you kind of look and see certain things that you can sacrifice, whether it's stuff that'll provide you more time. I mean, I had this realization, I think even this morning, I was just kind of like journaling and having some quiet time to kind of set my mind back into the hustle mode of life,
Right.
and not vacay mode. And just kind of analyzing my time of like, okay, because a lot of people say, well, I just don't have time. And it's like, well, that's not true. You have time. You're just
Right.
investing it elsewhere. So figure out where you're investing your time and where and how you can invest it more wisely that will benefit you in a better way than vegging out. And again, preaching to the choir, vegging out and binge watching a show. We were just talking about Succession before we pressed record.
Right.
Like that kind of stuff. It's like, wow, it's so entertaining. Cool. Well, did you further anything? No, but it was
Not a
fun.
thing.
You know what I mean? So are you willing to sacrifice those types of things
Yeah.
to kind of figure out, and then like you say, figure out what are profitable actions versus just busy work,
Right.
doing things for the sake of saying you're doing things, but they're not actually profiting you anything in the end, or in the the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, keywords are great, but if that's all you're ever going to do is a bunch of keyword research or researching niches and all that stuff, and you're never going to actually fricking get off your butt and list something, don't even bother. What's a profitable action? Well, listing a product, that's a profitable action because
Yep.
someone can actually buy it and give you money for it.
Yeah.
SEO, improving your SEO or your shop aesthetic, or, doing some keyword, research, all of those things can be important, but they also can keep you from doing those profitable things. So
Yep.
treat this like a business, and like your business depends on it,
Yeah.
and if you really want to make money, don't just keep doing the same things you've been doing. You've got to change something up. So what does that look like for you? I don't know, but it definitely doesn't look like what you're doing right now.
Yeah, totally. The last hurdle we'll talk about here, number 5, is know when to pivot. And I kind of named it that because I did want to play that.
I knew you did.
I just had to. It was
I got a fever.
So anyway, know when to pivot. Why do I say that? Well, okay, so let's look at another statistic when we're talking about college students. Okay. 50 to 75% of college students will change their major at least one time in the course of those 4 years. Okay. So the reality is that sometimes that first idea, that first product, that first business model, as you're kind of venturing into this, it might not work out the way that you planned initially. And I know you guys have heard Travis and I talk about this story. He and I, respectively, in our entrepreneur journey. Here's the thing. Side note. The person we stayed with in Brazil doesn't speak fluent English. So for the first literally 8 to 9 days, I was speaking to him in broken English in ways that I knew he would understand what I was saying. And then I would be talking to Madeline later that night in that same broken English, and she'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I can't. I've lost the ability to speak fluently." because I'm trying to communicate here with someone that doesn't speak the language. So anyway, very side note, but anyway, so Travis, you and I both, throughout our careers in POD, we've switched business models from Amazon to wholesale to arbitrage only to outsourcing to
Mhm.
production in-house to it's just like you have to make those pivots sometimes and be willing to kind of go where you feel there, for lack of a better term, the grace is. Like you might not have the grace for that first idea, it might not be working out, might not be being as profitable as you want it to be, but if you hold it tight and you're determined, you might actually end up being a detriment to yourself because you're not
Mhm.
willing to be flexible and
Right.
pivot with kind of how things are flowing in that moment.
Mhm. Yeah, you don't have to, um, yeah, pivoting, it's not that you failed.
Right.
But even if you do fail, um,
Yeah.
that's actually a learning experience um, that will move you forward in your business if you allow it to teach you. And so even back to step one, if the thing that is keeping you from moving forward, from starting, from creating that first account or whatever it is, if it's the fear of failing, well, let me
Yeah.
just tell you right up front that you will fail in certain
Yes.
aspects of your business. And that is
Yeah.
totally okay. It's totally normal. It's totally
Yep.
expected. And it will actually help you. I can not count on all of my extremities how many times I have failed in my e-commerce journey.
Yeah.
I probably would need 4 or 5 more people
Yeah. Yeah.
to count their extremities to get to
Yeah.
the final number. Yeah, it's just going to happen. It's just part of business. It's part of life. We don't get to get away from messing up.
Yep.
It's just what we do. I used to, back when I was a youth pastor, way, way, way back when, one of my things that I would always talk about was um, a failure is only a failure if you don't get back up. You
Yep.
can fail 1,000 times. You're not a failure. You're only a failure if you don't get back up and try again. And
Correct.
that's really what we're saying here. So pivoting is not failing. It's just another way that business can look,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Absolutely. Again, and I'll quote it again, but one of my favorite Winston Churchill quotes is success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm,
Mhm.
which is just perfectly encapsulates any entrepreneurial journey, let alone, in print on demand. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, Travis, anything else that you want to add here
Yeah.
or kind of talk about as we kind of wrap this whole thing up?
One of the things that we were toying with putting a sixth like bonus point
Hmm.
on this, and um, it was competition. And as we've been talking here, I was kind of thinking about that, and we took it off because it's not necessarily something that stops you at the
Yeah.
beginning from getting into pod, but it's something that you will absolutely come come into contact
You'll
with. It'll
encounter
be
it. Yeah.
yeah, you will encounter it in your entrepreneurial journey. And so um th- again, I just wanted to say, like, if you feel like the reason you haven't started is because you're afraid of the competition, you're afraid of a saturated market, you think that there's too many people and maybe this isn't the business for you.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not, what is, first of all?
Yeah.
If you don't have a replacement for this idea, and you've been thinking and you've been working on it and mulling it over and maybe even taking notes, and you've been focusing on this, if that's what's holding you back, like you think the market's saturated, you think it's competition, too much competition. Um, if you don't have something to replace this with, um, I don't know that you're necessarily an entrepreneur. This may not be for you.
Yeah.
If that's going to hold you back, it may not be for you, and there may be something else. But if you haven't figured out that something else, you might as well freaking list a product. You might
Yeah.
as well go into this thing, give it 30 days, and see
Yeah.
what happens, and quit
Yeah.
spinning your wheels. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the number one hurdle is number one in our list, is getting
Yeah.
started,
Yep.
taking action. And I
Yeah.
think every single one of these other points, we've kind of pointed back to number one as we've gone through them. So yeah, that's all I would say. In addition to all of this is no matter what the objection is
Yeah.
to actually getting started, it's not good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep, 100%. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We hope that you guys have found this information beneficial, helpful, encouraging, and motivating. And so, if you guys would be so kind, Travis mentioned it before, but we have a Facebook group, printondemancast.com/Facebook is where you can go and ask questions if you're just starting out, gain knowledge from people who have been in the industry for varying amounts of times, but everyone has something to offer. I guess imposter syndrome might be one of the hurdles that we didn't talk about, but it definitely is there as well.
That's a good one.
So, but everyone has something to offer. So go and join that community, answer the questions so we know that you're not just spamming or trying to just accumulate all kinds of Facebook groups for some bizarre reason. It's people do it. People do it. So answer the questions or we won't let you in. That's the whole Gandalf rule. You shall not pass unless you answer the questions. So answer the questions and you'll be good to go. We're also on Instagram, printondemandcast.com/Instagram and printondemandcast.com/YouTube as well. You can go there. And as we said at the top of the show, leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. Share, like, subscribe. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. And we thank you guys so much. And lastly, just printondemandcast.com. Go there. There's an archive of the shows. You can sign up for the newsletter. You get a bonus dad joke in those newsletters. Just some more information to kind of help you along on your journey. So with that being said, we will see you guys next week. Same POD time, same POD channel. But for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you next week right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.